All show and no depth.
Seagal's ponytail delivers the most nuanced performance.
You know Seagal's acting is suspect when he can't even pull off a convincing coma patient.
It's like the script was written with a gun and a bottle of whiskey.
Hard to watch.
Seagal runs like a constipated penguin.
Please tell me this was meant to be a comedy.
The only thing hard to kill is the time you spend watching it.
Welcome to this episode of Slept On Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
And I'm Grove Street.
And this week we're getting into the 1990... I want to say it's just a Steven Seagal film. It's not like those are its own category. I'm not going to say action. I'm going to say this is a Steven Seagal film. Hard to kill.
This is one of his big movies in the early 90s. The title almost doesn't matter, but this is a good one. So yeah, this is a very good Steven Seagal vehicle.
Excellent. And it's, you know exactly what you're getting when you go into a Steven Seagal movie. And that's why it's its own genre, really.
And all similar titles, right? I don't know if you're going to get into this, but yeah, like what does he have? He has like Out for Justice, Mark for Death.
Yeah. You're going in for a certain simple, predictable, awesome film. So don't get crazy with the title.
And we just need to know what he's out for. Steven Seagal is out for justice, or he is hard to kill, or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
I remember this movie too because it comes from an era of when I was watching it. Like my dad would go pick up a movie on the weekend to watch together when we were clearly too young. But it didn't matter what. It was never like the name of the movie. He's like, I got the new Seagal movie. I got the new Jean-Claude movie. I got the new Schwarzenegger movie. The title, like, it doesn't matter what it is. And this is like firmly entrenched in that early 90s. I've got the new Steven Seagal movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. Is he out for revenge? Wow. Yep. You got it right. Yeah, he is. And it's just going to have a great time on the ride.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a great ride the entire time. And yet this and all movies that we review are at or below 50% of Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and audiences. I know we say this literally every week, but this one really makes no sense to me. And the podcast is structured so that the first half is spoiler free. Talk about some things to look for in the film, take a break, watch the film, come back, and talk about what we just watched. And this one, like I said, I'm so glad we get to do this one because this movie, if you're a fan of action movies, you're going to love this. There's no way around this. This is just a awesome action movie.
And I also read that a review that if you're a fan, I think it was trying to make fun of the movie, but I didn't take it that way. But if you're a fan of early 90s, like a stereotype of early 90s action movies, this is it. Like if you want to know what all the spoof movies are made out of back in the day, it's this type of movie. It's perfect. This is the quintessential early 90s action movie.
Yeah, driven by people don't spoof bad films. People spoof the classics.
Let's get to the rotten premise. When police detective Mason Storm uncovers ties among corrupt cops, the mob, and charismatic politician Vernon Trent, a hit is ordered on his family. During the attack, Storm's wife is killed and the cop himself is severely injured. After waking up from a years-long coma, Storm, aided by gorgeous nurse Andy Stewart, slowly gets back on his feet and plots revenge against those who wronged him, particularly the duplicitous Senator Trent. Critics were a lowly 33%, and audience is 47%.
The only thing I can think is that for some reason, this was like a senior citizen discount, and it was just all grandmas who were doing the audience. And they're just like, nope, there's just too much action here. I can't handle it.
I squeezed too much into this hour and a half. Yeah, that's just too much to watch.
Too much. I mean, this should be critics, whatever, audience 99. Because like we talked about, it's a Seagal film. You know what you're getting. Maybe you didn't because it is early in his career. So maybe people didn't know what they were getting. But this is exactly what you should be getting in a Steven Seagal film. And if you don't like this, then like, why did you watch a Steven Seagal film?
Yeah, we've gone over this before with like the movies we do with Stallone and JCVD and Schwarzenegger. Like, they're established enough in their career. You're right. This is early, but it's still an early 90s action movie. He had put out a movie before, so you have an idea. If you're going to see this, besides the ponytail, which was new, you're going to expect everything else. So it's just so weird for me that people go into this expecting The English Patient or Schindler's List or something, and they're being like, that wasn't a film. That was just a garbage movie. It's like, well, then why are you at the Seagal movie? This is if you want to see a Seagal movie that's an action movie, this is no better.
Right. You should go see Driving Miss Daisy at that point, exactly. Which was in theaters at the same time,
and still seeing old Morgan Freeman.
Right, somehow. So this movie came out February 9th, 1990. It opened up number 1 at the box office. Finally, I feel like we've been on a bit of a drought, so it's nice to be back on top. Took in $9.2 million its first opening weekend. And at the time, it was the biggest 3-day February opening of all time. So this really crushed. It did take down Driving Miss Daisy, which had been number 1 for a while. So good job there. Tango Cash also came out a few weeks before. I feel like that's a very similar vibe, similar era. Like if you're trying to get a real feel for 90s action films, you had a great double feature opportunity at that point. The film would go on to make $47 million globally on just an $11.5 million budget. So as is often the case here, this movie made a lot of money. This movie did quite well. And I do feel like we're doing a Seagal back-to-back double feature. We just need to get this out of the way now. I don't think Steven Seagal is a good person.
No.
I think he's just not a great guy. He has some ties to Putin. He's, I guess, an absentee father, allegedly, all sorts of alleged sexual misconduct, assault, a habitual liar throughout the course of his life. So he's just not a great guy. I think we're just going to say that. We're not. We'll move on. We'll say that and move on.
I'm happy with it. It's funny. He went from being like just an a-hole to a way worse version of that. At the time, it was just kind of like funny. He's a jerk stuff, and now it's like not funny. He was awful. But I'm glad we're just getting it out of the way. Awful.
Yeah, just not great. But we're here to talk about the film. There's obviously a lot of people working on a film that goes into it, and we don't want to have one guy who's just an asshole taint this piece of art, which is phenomenal. So I will get in just a little bit on the Seagal background because how he came into his career is pretty interesting. He got into Aikido. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but a Japanese martial art. I believe it's Aikido when he was living in Japan in the 1960s, possibly living in Japan to escape the draft of the Vietnam War, but comes back to the U.S., was teaching Aikido at a dojo he owned in L.A., he claims to have been also advising the CIA on a number of different tactics at the time. That is obviously unverified. But he had a lot of movie exec clients at his dojo, and they sort of just took a real shine to him and ended up getting plugged into all these Hollywood circles. He married Kelly LeBrock, which is a huge pull. I mean, it's probably the number one 80s, the actress you could get at that point. He marries her sort of out of nowhere, and then this really powerful agent at the time is like, this guy's amazing. He's an amazing teacher. I think he'd be great in action films. Starts putting him in touch with movie producers, and the rest is history. They run movie after movie after movie highlighting this guy and his sort of very unique charisma and his fighting style, which is also exceptionally unique. It's kind of a wild story. It is this guy that was just very much right place, right time, and things just happened.
I love the idea of that like 80s super agent being like, hey, you got the stuff, guy. And it's just like him in this like dojo in Nowheresville, LA, just getting trained by some guy who is pretty good, but has this amazing charisma and just having the eye for talent to be like, what if I put you in something? And it actually works out.
It's crazy. I mean, it's one of those stories that it's like almost unbelievable, but that this is actually true. This actually happened. So wild start. And I think you kind of get a feel for that in the film, that this guy just sort of like came into this And this is what it is.
It's so funny at this time. The Seagal era it felt so different than getting, like I said before. We said it was like Arnold with the big muscles, and there's Jean Claude with the kicks and the splits. You're always waiting for the split, and you're always waiting for the Arnold line, and you're always you got the Stallones and the Bruce Willises, and there's usually like muscles and brawn, and it's not that with
No,
Seagal.
he's just kind of doughy guy, and I'm sure we'll get into this as we go through the film in the second half. But that kind of makes a lot of what it is. He's this kind of, I mean, he's tall and he has these skills, but he's kind of a little bit of an everyman.
He looks like an everyman, and all of his fights are like on his heels. He's on like his back
Oh
feet.
yeah,
He's just all hands. It's so great. But it was just very unique at the time. It came off as like very suave and very sure of himself. And we hadn't seen a ponytail rock like that before. I know it's a weird time, but the early 90s, like he really was pulling it off clearly because he was marrying the hottest women alive.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing. You think he took some risks, and they seem to have all panned out. It's remarkable.
It's always good. It's a life lesson to think yourself way better than you are and never doubt yourself in any way. Still working on those skills.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get to these. Want to get to our bolos?
Let's do it. Yeah, I do feel like, at least for me, this was one of these movies that I could have gone on for forever. There were so many just really fun little details throughout the entirety. And it's only an hour and a half film, which is a perfect length for a movie like this. But it was just chock full of just really fun and just unusual things.
Yeah, a lot of giggles while I wrote down stuff. The same thing happened with the draft. I know we have only like 4 picks in the draft. I have like 9 written down.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get to our first bolo. I'm going to go with a camcorder. If you were around back then, you would recognize one of these.
Absolutely. And following right back up, just a lot of Oscar talk. Whole lot of it.
$4. A rolling hubcap. I feel like that was like a good sign back in the day that there was a car chase, and it just happens. It just rolls across the screen after.
Yeah, I feel like that. I don't know if the hubcaps are just made differently back then, but yeah, it's like every time there was a car chase or someone just goes over a curb, there's just like hubcaps flying everywhere.
You got to see it roll across this.
It's not a car accident or even just like a speeding scene if there's not at least one hubcap rolling through the lanes. It's weird. I will go bolo a dirty doc.
I'm curious how you see him. So, Bolo Bill Sadler, you know who I'm talking about, right? The senator.
Mm-hmm.
What is he that guy from for you? Because I had it written down as one thing, but I'm curious if it's.
I have no idea. I was like, I feel like for me, he's just like that guy, but yeah. I don't know from what.
I've heard it be from Shawshank. He's one of those guys, but that's not mine. I have him as, maybe because I was too big into Bill and Ted, but I have him as Death from the Bill and Ted movies.
Oh, wow. Yes. I mean, those movies are all-timers, absolute all-timers. But the transformation he goes in to be Death is remarkable.
Phenomenal. And his face is just so him. So, Bolo Death from Bill and Ted.
Yeah, Bolo Death. I mean, that Death character, I know this is not the film we're doing, but that Death character is one of my favorite characters of any movie.
Absolutely. Me too.
I'm going to go Bolo Dean Norris. This is our second Dean Norris movie, which is always great to see. And again, he has not changed ever. He looks exactly the same in every single film.
There's a Louis C.K. bit about how like he looked old in his 20s, he looked 40 in his 20s, but when he got to 40, he looked young. And like same thing with this, like Dean Norris he looked 35 for maybe 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally right. He was probably like 20, looked 35, and now he's just stuck on 35. So comes back around.
Bolo, very 90s, smoking a cigar at work.
The good old days.
Good old days, yep.
I'm going to go Bolo Johnny Carson.
Yep, that was a good one. Bolo squeezing it in.
I was going to go Bolo dick jokes, but with
Hold
that
on.
one,
Let's just cover this. Bolo double entendres.
yes.
Just cover that. And that takes off like 5 things from my list.
Yeah. Bolo, an exceptionally 80s house. I know this movie takes place in 1990, but I've never seen a house that was this 80s fancy ever.
The house sitting, right? Just the house sitting?
This was the senator's house.
Oh, yep. Oh, wow.
That's what I mean. They're both exceptionally 80s house in very different ways.
Wow, the Senators is definitely more 80 though. 80s. I'm gonna say Seagal touching his own clothes, especially when he's in suits. He's always doing a little touch.
We'll follow that up with Bolo, maybe a pirate outfit.
Bolo holding a shotgun with one hand.
Bolo just missing the elevator. Happens a lot.
This part, I was dying laughing during this part. Bolo reluctantly getting a massage.
Yes. And we have to hit this one up. Bolo, a bolo tie.
Very good. Nice, yeah. Bolo, Geraldo, but not just Geraldo. Geraldo during the time where he had just broken his nose.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and rewatched that YouTube of how it happened, which is a fun watch.
And also excellent pronunciation of his name.
Yeah.
In the film.
Yeah, in the film. Not here.
I'm going to go Bolo, a very strange and unexplained red light.
Bolo, flashbacks?
Yep, a lot of those. Bolo, a toilet seat message. I've seen bathroom mirror messages, but I'd never seen a toilet seat message before.
This might be our first toilet seat message.
It's mine. My first, for sure.
Bolo, one of my favorites from this era, a sexy sax.
Oh, yeah. Bolo, an auto trader.
Oh, all right. He just took that list. Bolo, nut shots.
Literally took that off my list. There
Nut
are some
shots.
great ones. Yes, nut shots. Or maybe not.
Or not? Oh, yeah, maybe not.
Bolo, a wine monkey. I don't really know what that is, but it exists, and it's great.
Yeah, I'm glad it does. Bolo, a clear outline in some tight Seagal jeans.
Bolo, some innocent flower pots.
That scene was amazing. Bolo, like we have to say it, I guess, but Bolo, broken bones.
Mm-hmm. Bolo, a white picket fence. I feel like this is very much the era where a white picket fence was used to mean something.
It does. And then 10 years later, the white picket fence was meant to mean something worse.
Yes.
Bolo, a takeout order.
Nice. Bolo, cable hospital news. Hadn't seen that station before, but it exists.
Bolo, motivational newspaper clippings.
The newspaper scenes, I know you love that. There were some great newspapers in this film. Fantastic
Phenomenal.
Newspapers. Bolo, do the right thing. Must have been a little cross promotion.
Bolo, a catchphrase.
Bolo, and this is digging deep, but Bolo, your buttermilk. That's one for all the listeners who are closed caption people.
Nicely done. I think I got one more here. Bolo, tinfoil coffee cap. I feel like I don't want to get a coffee from places that throw a tinfoil top. And I'm like,
yeah.
it's no. No.
Yeah. I got a couple more here. Let's go Bolo, a really great parking space. especially for a nurse. I feel like those often go to the doctors. Bolo masks.
Yep.
Some strange mask choices for a few folks. And Bolo, a game of hide and seek. I could go on, but
Yeah.
this just keep your eyes peeled for those things and so much more, because this movie just has it all.
Yeah, it does not stop. All right. Well, I'm curious. We have the same ones here, but what drink do you pair with a movie?
So, there are all different types of ways we do this. There's cerebral ones. There's ones that get you into the vibe of the film, and then there's ones that are just in the film. And sometimes I'm like, don't overthink it. Get yourself a bottle of champagne and just go to town with it. I love it. I love the pick because it comes up twice in this movie. It comes up at the very beginning. It comes up at the very end. It comes up three times. Comes up three times. Comes up three times in the film, and in very different contexts. But it's also kind of celebratory. This is a movie that is, exactly what you're getting. If you're looking for a Steven Seagal film, this is it. So celebrate that. Enjoy it.
I think that's such a great pick. You're right. It's so smart to be like, yeah, you got the Seagal movie you wanted. He's celebrating in the movie. You should be celebrating too because you found the movie. Let's drink some champagne together. And there's so many. It's a very funny drink to have along with this movie because it doesn't seem like it fits, but it absolutely does. That's a great pick. And my pick is along the same lines. The reason I said 3, because you said champagne.
I see where you're going with this.
Yes. I'm going to go with, instead of champagne, I will take the champagne of beers, and I will go with a High Life because that may come up in the movie as well. So there's possibly 3 champagne references in this movie, some to beers. So I think if you just have, you bring home a 6er and just, you don't have to crush the whole thing, but just have a few during the movie, and you, by the end of that last, maybe there's 2 of you in the room, but by the end of that last bottle, you'll have a little swill down there, which is the perfect way to finish this movie.
Oh yeah, that's two great choices. Get them both. Have some friends over. Mix and match, and you're gonna enjoy this.
This is a great, back in the day, you'd watch it with some buddies, and you'd all share in some of the quotes to sort of a little nod to each other, like, yeah, we've seen that movie and we like it too. So this is a great communal watching movie. If you want to get some friends over and watch a movie, you're all going to have a couple extra inside jokes after this movie.
Yeah, I can't wait for everyone to watch this because it's just a fun ride, start to finish.
All right, enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy.
Steven Seagal is Mason Storm, a cop working undercover until his cover was blown.
Whoever that is, I don't want him to get an hour older.
They thought they'd seen the last of him. But Mason Storm is hard to kill. Now,
he's toast, you understand?
The climate is right.
We'll get him, buddy.
For revenge.
Every one of them. I think you better dial 911.
Mason Storm is about to hit back. Steven Seagal is hard to kill.
Take that to the bank.
Slept On Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Like we talked about before, it's everything you want in this film.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what, I'm sure watched this a few times on local TV when I was a kid. I don't really remember it, but I'm so glad you had just seen this before we decided to do it. And let's just do it. And I'm so glad we picked it. This is I almost forgot about the whole Seagal era. It just became such a joke now. And he's such a caricature of himself. You can't imagine that he was ever this Hollywood it guy. And he absolutely was. And this is the prime of it.
Yeah. At this point, has had decades of sort of direct to video, on demand, all that kind of stuff, of just really not great films. And you forget that he has these films from back in the day that were really fantastic. And these newer films don't make this film any worse. It's just you kind of forget about it, like you said, because of it's a little bit clouded. Your memory gets clouded by the more recent films that have come out.
And then you watch this and you get brought right. It's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
Right, brought get back into it, and you're like, oh yeah, I get why he was that guy.
Yeah, he was a huge star for years, and
He's played LeBron for 10 years. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that he still is able to churn out movies is just a testament to the fact that he had these really, really great run of films for a long time. And you talk about the great action stars of all time in this era, you have to talk about Seagal. I mean, you have, like we talked about, JCVD, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, all these people, and Seagal has to be in that conversation. Like he's not my favorite, but he has to be in the conversation. And
he also has a shorter run. Like I think Schwarzenegger could put out a movie tomorrow and be like, oh, it's still a Schwarzenegger vehicle even after being governor and everything else. Seagal had his run and now became like a punchline years later. But during that time, he was just as big as any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
You want to get to the draft?
Let's do it. This was a really fun movie to draft. For me, at least, I didn't think there was a number one just screaming pick. And I think that sometimes those drafts are more interesting. So I'm curious to see what we end up with here. But I think my first overall pick, and we touched on this a little bit in the first half, I'm taking, I don't know the best way to describe it, but I guess it's like the Steven Seagal fighting style. And that is just this style that makes me feel like I could do this. And I feel like that makes sense why he was such a great teacher and martial arts instructor, because he's up there he clearly has these skills, but he's kind of doughy, makes it effortless looking, but not in a way that Jean-Claude Van Damme does these kicks that look effortless. Like those kicks look very practiced and very precise. Seagal's fighting it looks like he's just barely even paying attention and yet kicking everybody's ass in the process, to the point that I'm like, all right, I could watch a few YouTube videos and I could do that. This doesn't look hard. And there's something about that makes you more engaged with the films. You're just like, hell yeah, I could do that. Let's do this. I felt like I was more involved because it was more relatable.
That you think I could do that because this guy's on his back feet. He's not ripped in any way. He's 6'2". It's not like he's a giant. He's not Dolph Lundgren. He's 6'2". He's got some size to him, but he's just kicking everyone's butt. And he's like the Steph Curry of action stars, where you're like, well, if I just do practice these moves, he's not that big. I could be that great. No, you can't.
Yeah, absolutely not.
It looks so easy, but maybe what he's doing is all fake too. If you talk to some other people, but as the style is, it looks like the whole point of the Aikido thing is that, and you use somebody else's strength against them. So if someone's really big, you're like, oh, great, I'm going to use all their strength against them.
Mm-hmm. So
that's why you can just sit back on your heels and just wait for them to attack you, and then they're destroyed. And it makes it seem so plausible that you could do that, and it absolutely is not. And that's what's so great about this. I feel like there was a comedian had they were so afraid to go around white people after a Rocky movie because they all thought they could kick the hell out of everyone around. And the same thing must have been with Seagal. Oh, well, what if 5 guys want to fight me? Whatever. And then you just all their necks, and none of that ever actually happens.
No, you get just absolutely destroyed. But we don't need to worry about reality when you're watching a film. You're just like, hell yeah. That aspect of this just pulls you into the film and makes you feel more intricately a part of it while watching it. I think that's part of what makes Steven Seagal movies so watchable. Even
after talking about this, I still think at my 40 plus years old right now, if I sign up for Aikido, I might be able to kick everyone's ass in 3 classes.
No, yes. I feel like with every watch of this film, I was like, I got a little bit more convinced.
Right.
That I was like, yeah, I could be deadly.
Yeah, just give him a pool cue. Sure. That'll be fun. Great pick. I don't know which. I think you're 100% right that I couldn't find one, at least a clear cut first pick. So these are probably all. I think I have 15 second rounders on my back. But I'm taking. I don't know if I can take both parts of this, but I'm going to try to. I'm taking the Packy scene The liquor store scene.
Oh, man, I was really hoping to get that on the second round. I thought about taking that first.
It's just full of
It's
everything
amazing.
I want. It's the perfect 90s thing. You get this weird banter with the Oscars and like, being a porn movie, and you have and champagne, and it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. And the thugs come in. And the best part of that scene for me, there's this weird thing in this movie where Seagal's like, oh, and he like tries to think of what you're thinking. He's like, oh, you don't think this is fair, do you? Oh, you want me to put down this gun? It's bigger than yours. Oh, do you want me? I'm standing. That's not fair. Oh, do you want me to go on my knees and put my hands behind my back and then you fight me? It's just, I've never seen that before. The like, oh, this isn't a fair fight out. Let me downgrade my position to the point where you think you have an advantage. And that part was even part of the scene. This whole, in the package store just was straight out of the 90s too.
It was amazing. I completely agree. I was toying with taking that. I thought I could squeak it in there in the second round. I was obviously mistaken. It has everything. And the store clerk, perfectly cast. He's every line he has is perfect. I rewatched that scene like 5 times. And it's just, I think it's the best scene in the entire film. We often talk about movies that have like a great opening scene that just like gets you in the vibe. This has a great second scene. The opening scene obviously sets the stage for the film and is sort of lays the groundwork for everything that subsequently happens. But this is the scene that really tells you what this movie is going to be about.
And just the inconsequential nature of the entire thing, where after it happened, it was, I forget the other cop's line, were like, you gave them the storm or something like that. And he just goes home. 5 guys are dead, I think. And he's just like, I had a tough day at work, honey. It's not my blood. Let's go have sex upstairs with this champagne that I brought home still, in spite of everything.
It has zero to do with the plot. It in no way advances the plot of the film at all, which is shocking that in a movie that's 90 minutes that you still manage to squeeze in a scene that has nothing to do with the plot at all, yet is the best scene in the entire
and it's almost necessary. Otherwise, he just kind of looks like a guy on adrenaline who, when his family's getting shot up and you don't quite know his skill level. So, like, if that scene wasn't there, would we know outside of him being Seagal that he's capable of?
No, I think that's right. I think it's like absolutely essential for the movie, but yet has nothing to do with the plot. Which is like a crazy combination of factors. And I think that's what makes it so great. And it's obviously just like flawlessly executed. The fight scene's amazing. The dialogue's unbeatable. The scene itself, it's I like gas station scenes. I feel like this has that sort of same vibe to it. A lot of racks and display cases, lots of things that can get broken and crash into. And
so good. We do some of these movies where there's just like such casual death in the beginning. In the 90s, it's just like, they just died. Whatever. It's not a big deal. It's not going to ruin anyone's night. My second pick, this is tough, but I like the idea. I couldn't think of any other examples, but I'm sure we can when we think about it. But the idea in certain movies where if you are the villain, or suppose like you were set up and you're not the villain, but you're trying to prove your innocence, you can basically bulldoze your way through and do whatever you want. You can kill cops, you can destroy property, you can kill other people. It does not matter, because at the end, if they realize, hey, we saw you were set up, we get it now, then everything you've done is completely fine. I love that. It's like, there's no record of you smashing into cars and shooting at cops and beating them up or just killing people in general. It doesn't matter, because we get it. You did it because you were right? Okay. You can do whatever you want. And it's just as a great thing back in like the 90s and 80s or whatever, where it didn't really need to, the loop didn't really need to close. It doesn't really need to make sense, but you were proven right at the end, and then you get the girl and your son back and everything's rosy. It's like Time Cop, right? You're just like, everything's fine now.
Yeah, I feel like there's a big, I don't know what the word is, but it's sort of like juxtaposition, or everything's relative. If you're just always a good guy or always right, that's just ho-hum. But when you go from being everyone thought you were this just straight disgraced cop and like horrible guy, to then at the switch flips, like, oh no, this guy was actually good the whole time. The difference between those is so big that everything else is irrelevant at that point because the jump that you just made. And that's incredibly persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great pick. I feel like mine is also, my second round pick is also sort of similar, only in that it's kind of like a movie element that you can weave into films. Mine is just the concept of a coma patient in a film. I don't know why they don't do these in more films, because it just adds another wrinkle. You could have had almost this exact same film without 7 years in a coma, but it wouldn't have been as good. Someone just threw that extra little wrinkle. It adds a little bit more to it. And it doesn't really change anything. So you can almost add a coma to like any movie, and I think it'll make it a little bit better. And you get to just do a lot more. You get to like have some fun. It's like, oh, this guy has a beard now, or like all this stuff randomly changed, and we don't have to explain it because this is 7 years passed. Pop.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that what happened in like daytime TV? Someone just go in a coma for like 2 seasons, wake up and be like, wait, what? Hope is with who?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a big soap opera mechanism, and I don't understand why people don't use it in more movies. I mean, I guess maybe people think it's a little cheap, but I think it's a great feature, and I love
cheap is like it works.
Right.
Absolutely works. I also love the idea of like in the writer's room, they're coming up with how many years he's in the coma.
Oh, yeah.
I always think of this Jason X, the movie that I think is on our list to do. And they put the year in like 25, 87, 37. You're like, I mean, I guess I can't say anything. That's a really hard year to know what's going on. And this is like 7 years ahead. Like, could it have been a year or 6 months? It probably could have been, but let's go 7 because he has a chance to be in the Senate now instead of an assemblyman, I guess was the... whatever, it doesn't matter. 7 years went by.
Yep. 7 years went by, lots of newspapers flying around.
Did you see how much the newspaper cost?
Oh, no. How much was it?
30 cents. For the San Francisco Tribune.
All right. Third pick. I feel like all my picks now are like maybe third picks, maybe...
Yeah, we're in third picks.
Maybe sleeper. And I think this is probably sleeper level, but there are just some of these that I really liked. I'm going with the random toss-in lines here. I'm getting a couple picks with this, and there were 2 in particular that were just, to me, evidence that they were just having fun with this film, like not taking it too seriously. They knew what their audience wanted, and they were just having a good time. And I had to rewind these twice, but there was one in that car scene where there is a hubcap flying around, cars speeding away, and then there's just, you hear like, and you're like, what? Like, there's no one on screen. Who's talking? I run this a number of times. There's a milk truck parked in the street, and there's some woman. There's a milk delivery man walks back to the truck, like randomly in the scene, and this woman just says, "Hey, Ernie, you forgot my buttermilk." There's zero reason for that to be in there, but someone's just like, we have to have this line. Like, this adds something.
It's going over our heads.
Yes.
This is like the net all over again. We're missing stuff. Maybe there is a reason to have this line.
It definitely, you're right. It means something because it's only 90 minutes. There's only so many lines, and that one made it.
And you had the closed captioning on?
That was the only way I could figure out what this was. I've listened to it a number of times, and I couldn't get it. And then the closed captioning sealed the deal. I was like, oh, yeah. Hey, Ernie, you forgot my buttermilk.
Essential to the plot.
Essential. The other one, not quite as great as the buttermilk, but when they're flying around in the Jeep getting chased after fleeing the beautiful apartment, and Andy just, as an aside, says, "I forgot to lock the door." And you're like, okay, sure. It's just another one of these things that they toss in for us to know. It's them letting us know, don't take any of this too seriously.
But that was to show you the next scene, the locked door.
Right.
I think that was a glimpse of the Steven Seagal thing about like protecting the earth, because what doesn't mean she didn't lock the door to the house. It was to the gate so that the horses didn't leave and go back into the gate. And then when that horse got out, there was like this weird like, back to nature as it should be. Like, yes, thank goodness the door was unlocked. It was a very strange on deadly ground-esque noise to be like, back to nature of the way things should be. I thought that was hilarious. I forgot to lock the door.
Yeah, I love that interpretation. I think that's beautiful. So that's my pick. Those random lines. If you didn't notice it, definitely go back and watch those two because they're just phenomenal.
So good. Me and my next pick here. Which one do I want to be a sleeper, and what do I want to give third pick status? I should have probably given the sleeper status, but I just spent so much time doing it. It really has nothing to do with this movie, but I just watched so much Will Sasso Mad TV footage over the past 2 weeks. If you want the best celebrity impersonator in the most hilarious skits, just Mad TV, Will Sasso, Seagal. It is phenomenal. There's so many different versions of the skits. I'm not going to explain them or whatever, but there's one where Seagal goes around the country, and there's another one where he just beats up everyone on set, and it's just the best impersonation of Seagal I've ever seen, and there's like 6 different videos on Mad TV. So
yeah, you sent me some of those, and I completely agree. If you're a Seagal fan, or even if you're not, you just watch this film, go watch one of these. Give yourself 5 minutes. You will not regret it. This guy nails it.
I also think I'm changing my pick mid-pick. Instead of saying Mad TV, I'm going to say online footage outside of this movie about Seagal. You can go down the biggest rabbit hole on YouTube of ridiculous interviews with Seagal. His SNL was hands down the worst SNL in history. That show's been on since 1975. Everyone says it's the worst SNL. And if you go back and watch it, it is. It's not even funny to watch. It's just awful. So it's funny to watch. So I'm just saying, like, YouTube Seagal is the winner. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Yep. He's a content machine.
Yep.
The number of films, the number of news things about him, just because he's so weird. There's just so much Seagal on the internet. That's a great choice.
My sleeper, there's a question coming up about this anyway, about my view on this, but I couldn't stop laughing on this. When Andy or Kelly LeBrock was wheeling him out of the hospital and just banged into everything. She banged into like 5 things, and he keeps giving these looks like, what the hell are you doing? And it's unnecessary, but so necessary for the movie.
Yeah, and again, it's so relatable. Yeah, that would be, those things are really difficult, and she's moving.
She's moving
to her excellent parking space. That's a great pick, because it was almost a parody level of how ridiculous it was. Like it made me think of like Nordberg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it happened once. I was watching with my wife the first time, and I just started dying laughing. I'm like, "Was that a mistake? Why did they put that in the movie?" And then she just it was like going down that ramp. It's like playing bowling with your kid, and you have the gutter ramps up.
Right, bumpers up. Yeah, so good, so good. That's a great pick. My sleeper pick is also right around that time in the movie. Also, Andy in the hospital. And my sleeper pick is, it's carrying everything in one trip. This is deep cut. But right before she runs out to find that people have been shot and just starts to put the pieces together, she's loading up a tray with like 17 boxes of medical supplies. And like no one would ever, like, you go to a hospital, people are very, very careful with things. She's just loading everything up in this tray because it's got to be one trip, and then carrying this massive box. She can't even see where she's going because it's so many things piled high in front of her. And I am also a one trip person, so I very much respect the one trip mindset. I will load up, if it's groceries, I will do everything I possibly can to bring them all in one trip. That's just, I don't know, it's probably something wrong with me, but I respect the one trip mindset. So I got to give that to her.
I couldn't be more on board, and I'm so far on board where there's nothing I could drop or break and me rethink that one time going through isn't the answer.
Sometimes that's the price you pay for one trip, and that's okay.
Efficiency costs something.
Yes.
There's a give and take. I have an anti-pick.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Sleeping with the door wide open.
Yeah, that's weird.
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine my kid going to sleep and his door is just wide open.
No, his kids go to bed. It's like still light out.
Yeah, and he still has his lights on in the room.
Yeah.
It's just your kid doesn't go to sleep with the door wide open to the rest of the house.
Yeah,
It's an insane thing.
Right. Well, it's also 6 cookies and a glass of juice.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that's definitely an odd one. Especially when there's also that mysterious red light emanating from somewhere in the hallway.
And I also, yeah, right. I also had an honorable mention that I didn't pick, but I thought you would like. There was the scene where Seagal went into the billiards lair of all the henchmen, whatever. And of course, there has to be like a pool fight scene because it's the 90s.
Has to be.
And then the one guy like breaks his in half and does all these moves, and then he just like cracks him over the head. And I don't know if we've talked about this before. If this is the Indiana Jones thing that comes up in movies, is it? Are we attributing that to Indiana Jones with the sword fight, the Arabian with the?
I do in my mind. Maybe there's something earlier, but for me, that's what all of those scenes go to.
Yeah, me too. And there's been a bunch since, and it's always the loud noise, and you just go, okay, bang. You're like, this is you're not being practical. You're being a lot of flair, but there's no practicality in what you're doing.
Right. You play yourself.
Yeah. So very Indiana Jonesy thing. So
I like that. Obviously, I got a couple quick honorable mentions. I'll just rattle off. One, the opening font.
So good.
Love that font. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah. Love the opening font. This is another deep cut, but they're being able to document things is also a great little sleeper pick here. There's a scene early in the hospital right after the storm has come back to life. And he's like, "Oh, I need you to, don't let anybody in this room. I need to talk to everybody." And it's like, "Can you document that this is?" I forget what the line was, but it was something along the lines of, "Can you document whatever it is that you're asking me to do?" And he's like, "I can document it, and I will." Just the ability to document something. I feel like once you can document something, you have all the authority in the world.
It's very powerful. It's like denunciate.
Yeah, exactly. And then my last one up, just acupuncture.
Yes,
this acupuncture scene with the smoke and the incense, it made me really want to get acupuncture.
I had that as my first possible pick. That scene, that like panoramic shot where they're going around him and he's smoking and he's like just sitting there all not jacked. And it was just an amazing, amazing scene.
It is. It's one of these scenes that you almost can't believe exists.
All right, 2 quick ones. I think his name, Mason Storm, is like the best.
That could have been a number one pick.
Such a great name, and I also like the variants of the wardrobe of the bad guys and the henchmen.
Yep.
Many henchmen. Some could be in Canadian tuxedos, others are in hoodies, others are in suits and tuxes. It's just all over the place.
You got the sense that they were part of a very large organization that had all different walks of life.
Right. Yeah. Even the people in different walks of life were only wearing those clothes to pretend they were in that walk of life, I think, too. So it was just a big net, yeah. Superlative. I finally came up with this one. So
yeah, that's a great one.
Favorite thing someone is thrown into, onto, or through?
Yes, and there are a lot of things to choose from.
It's a lot of things. I'd like you to go first on this one because I have 2 picks, so I'll pick whichever one.
Yep. I mean, it's probably a bit predictable because of how much we've already talked about this. But I'm taking the shelf in the liquor store that has it's a red liquid of some sort. I couldn't quite tell what it was. It looked like they were in liquor bottles, so maybe some sort of digestif. I'm not sure, but this guy just gets thrown through it. There are glass shards everywhere. There's this huge splash of red. It's in one of the greatest scenes in the entire film. So I'm taking that liquor store shelf. It was one of the first ones in the movie, and it's, in my mind, perfect.
It's happened so early, and you think it's going to be. I mean, there's so many other great ones, and you think it could be beaten, and it isn't really. That's such a great pick. That was my top pick. My other pick, I just thought this was hilarious. It's so. Oh God, I forget, what's the Emilio Estevez spoof movie? National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon. There's a Loaded Weapon-esque scene where, like in that movie, they just have people unnecessarily thrown through plate glass windows just all the time. And there was one scene in this where they're like in a mall or whatever, and it's like, "You're surrounded, Storm. don't do anything. And he just kicks a guy through a window and like a plain glass window and then picks him up and throws him through another one. So like, I've never seen anyone throw through multiple store windows.
Yep.
And he went through himself too. He didn't care. He's like, we're both going through, but you're going through first. And I just love the idea of throwing someone through two windows.
Oh yeah, and it was like they had like a tally they had to hit because they were just racking up things. I also really liked it was like a pergola, and someone didn't really get thrown through it, but it was in the car chase with the Jeep where someone I think gets hit into it and then goes into the. I want to say it's a pergola. I'm not entirely sure.
It is, but it goes through. They essentially go through like 3 stanchions of that pergola.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's incredible. And right before that, the guy didn't get thrown through anything, but it was very Austin Powers-esque where Seagal is driving through the field and they're shooting at him. They're like, you have plenty of time to get out of the way. And, and he gets like hit and there's this great bonk sound. He just goes flying.
It was amazing.
All right. Bumper sticker. What do you got for your bumper sticker line?
This was a movie that had such great dialogue. There's so many things to choose from. I mean, I think there's one line that probably sticks with people the most from this, and I'm not going to take it, but the classic one, and this could definitely go on a bumper sticker, I'm going to take you to the bank, to the blood bank. One of the greatest lines in any action movie ever. It could be the greatest. Because of the way it happens in the film, because of you could take that to the bank, all that, it's an amazing line, but I'm not going to take that for my bumper sticker.
I think I'm so glad you picked that because I wasn't going to pick it either. But I think part of it is what you said. It's the way it's delivered in the movie makes it great. The line itself is a line that is good, but the way it's said in the movie makes it great. And I don't think you can put that on a bumper sticker to have the effect that it has in the movie. Yeah.
No, I don't think so either. And it probably gets interpreted the wrong way. I'm not sure what the right way is, but it's probably the wrong way. So I'm going to go for a deep, deep, deep sleeper for my bumper sticker. And I don't know why I like this, but at one of the ending towards the end in the train station scene, where the good cop and Storm's son are in there and they're waiting for Storm. And for some reason, this is almost one of these throwaway lines. The cop says, "Watch out for that hot dog. Don't spill the mustard." There's like all this really intense stuff going on. He's like, "Watch out for that hot dog. Don't spill the mustard." It's like, he knows how to handle a hot dog. Like, what are you doing, guy? But I just really like the line, "Don't spill that mustard."
Yeah.
I think that could be a really great bumper sticker.
I think that's a universal thing to me. Like now that you said that, I didn't pick up on this when it happened, but it's almost like a way to like watch out for the basics, son.
Yeah, right.
It's like you're playing basketball and it's like, remember, we can't afford a turnover right now. You're just like keeping to the basics. All right, we have all this going on, but can you just not spill your mustard? That's going to be easy. If you're thinking about all these other things, you're not going to be concentrating on what you're doing. Don't spill the mustard. And I feel like that could be a great thing to be said in any situation. If like you're going in and like, I had a wedding once I was in, and the priest was telling us all like, overboard, don't pass out. This isn't your day. Don't pass out. We've had it before. People pass out. And all he could have said was like, guys, just don't spill the mustard.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's my bumper sticker. Don't spill that mustard.
That's phenomenal. Imagine seeing that on the road. How much you would love that car in front of you. Wait, are you quoting a 1990s Seagal movie? I am in. Mine isn't as subtle as that. Mine is, I think we have everything tab on this show, so I can't say the F word, but F you and die, I thought was if you're just that driver and just one of the best the best things ever said, I think. This is for my mom, this is for my wife, F you and die is just
so
like
good.
Like someone cuts you off and they go like, this is for my wife, F you and die. You're like, well, this is an angry man and something happened, so I guess I'll absorb this. Doing it for some bigger reason than me.
Like I feel like that one is like you need to have a button that you can deploy that bumper sticker when necessary. Because you don't necessarily want to just have that for everyone, but there are those instances where you need somebody to see that when you're driving.
Let's move on to one change to be a blockbuster. Is there any?
I really struggled with this because, as we talked about, this movie is just so tight. It is so exactly what it's supposed to be. They give you the action Steven Seagal fan exactly what you want. It has everything. And the one thing that I thought could have made this an even bigger blockbuster for me, Senator Trent, he's got to die. He's got to die at the end. And I don't think that Storm should just kill him because he has to be this good guy. But I think it needed one of those final scenes where the senator pulls a gun out and then is going to shoot somebody else, and then Storm saves the day by killing him. It needs to be something like that. So it's not just straight up cold-blooded execution style, but he orchestrated the murder of this guy's wife. He was in a coma. He took 7 years of being with his kid away from him. He's got to go. As an audience member, I got to see him die.
That was the alternate ending, and I kept Googling to try and find it, and I couldn't see any footage of it, but that was the other ending, was what it said, is them killing him. And I agree. It couldn't have been just I'm here to kill you and what you did, boom, because then it changes who... Yeah,
it's you want Storm to be this triumphant hero at the end, and that puts a little bit of a
essentially a bigger version of him being I'm going to put these cuffs on you, I'm going to walk you to detective whatever, and then he grabs the fireplace stick.
Yeah.
But if that could just be a gun when all the cops show up and he's shooting at the girl or whatever, and then he has to kill him because of it, and then it wasn't in cold blood. It was I think that's
you need to spin it so that it's still uplifting, or that Storm's still the ultimate hero, but he's got to go.
Yeah, I do like that. I'm waffling. What I didn't take, but kind of wanted to take, was just take out the porn scenes with Seagal. I don't think I needed him.
Yeah.
It's also funny that his wife was on set and he has a longer sex scene with some other girl to start the movie. Very strange.
And they maybe had better chemistry.
Yes, for sure. And also going back into his background, you can see why maybe that happened with the other girl, whatever.
Yes.
We're not going down that road. But you could take that out. But also zag to that is he had a huge problem, Seagal, with the director of this, because he didn't like how he cut certain things. He didn't like how he didn't have any part of the editing process. So I want to see not the director's cut, but the Seagal's cut, where he edits the movie, and it might be like the Snyder cut, where it's 5 hours, but it's a 2.5 hour version of this, of all the important dialogue and neck snaps or whatever that Seagal wanted in this. But I fear that my original intent to take out the porn scenes would just result in more of the sex scenes with Seagal if he got the final editing.
Yes. At the very least, there would be 15 more references to how massive his junk is.
That part was the best. You catch your wife and she just talks about how big your junk is for the entire movie. Yeah, it would just be 10 more big dick jokes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we're on to spin-off ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, but that scene in the liquor store was just that good. I'm coming right back to it. The guy himself says, I don't need to watch movies. I have everything here. He says, I have horror, sex, freaks, violence, and I don't have to pay no $4 either. Give me a show. Give me that liquor store like that. I don't get why there hasn't been a show that revolves around a liquor store. That should be a show.
I agree. It's kind of Clerks-esque, which was a movie, but not a show. Let's just see.
Give me a show. You have all these things. Let's do it. And definitely have to have that guy, because that guy was perfect.
Phenomenal. There's no way he's alive in real life, but maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I figured it out. Or you find some, you find that guy.
That guy.
But you need to have him.
That is a fun, I would like to see that show. That's a good one. Mine is just simply a prequel focusing on Storm's rise through the police ranks. I wanted to see how he became the unstoppable detective or homicide investigator, his initial encounters with corruption, and I want to see where that mission he was on was a culmination of a lot of hard work in the past when he was doing like the camera on the docks and stuff. So I want to see everything of his rise up until that point. And then the next movie just starts right here. So we don't have to do anything else. I just want to see. He's like this mythical figure that everyone knows about. This, I mean, the assemblyman is there when his family gets shot, and other cops are like, I thought he was superhuman, but it turns out he was just on coke or whatever. And the name of the movie is called Before the Storm.
Oh, yeah. With all the Steven Seagal films that have been made, I don't understand how that one hasn't been made. No one cares if he's older when you make it. No one cares.
I couldn't care less.
Just make the ponytail shorter.
Yeah. His hair is even darker now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would like to, I hope in that show or in that movie, they do show him buying that camcorder, because I'm very curious what he was asking for that allowed him to have a separate audio cassette tape from the video. I didn't know that was a feature or an option, but I'd like to see the store where he purchased that.
Wait, so the videotape doesn't have audio? I'm confused.
I think the videotape maybe also has audio, but right when he's driving back, he's listening to it, the audio just on a cassette in his car.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So maybe the video is totally separate. Are there two tapes? I don't know how it works.
Funding. We're talking about like police stations in the 90s having like 80s style equipment. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'd like to find out, and I hope that's a feature of that prequel.
We talked about how the name of the movie was almost 7 Year Storm, right?
No.
Oh yeah, that was the original title for this movie, was 7 Year Storm, because he was out for 7 years during his whatever. But then
Hard to Kill is better.
Right. Warner Brothers wanted everyone to know this is a smash mouth action with Seagal. The other one's a little too cerebral, I guess. Yeah.
It's confusing. It also focuses on the wrong thing.
Yes.
Right? Like this isn't a coma movie.
No.
This is a kicking ass movie.
The coma doesn't need to even be there. This is a kicking
right.
Coma doesn't need kicking ass needs to be there. The coma doesn't.
Right. The movie could have had the exact. We were talking about this, but it could have been exactly the same. It's just you don't get his kid being taken care of for 7 years by his friend. That's literally the only thing.
The nicest friend in the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, all I did was fake your death, your funeral of your wife, your kid, and then I took care of your kid. Well, that's the best thing you could have possibly done.
That's the greatest undertaking you could possibly imagine.
I have no words. Go over a quick run of the notes here. If we didn't get anything we didn't get into on your end.
I think we hit most of mine.
I'm going to run by a few.
What you got?
I think Kelly LeBrock looking at his junk was ridiculous. Doesn't just like. It's just like, did this happen in the 80s and 90s? Or it doesn't seem like it would happen ever.
Like, I felt like Seagal, put that in his contract that scene had to be in the film.
This whole movie is like humble bragging about Seagal.
Yes.
The same reason why Van Damme and Stallone and all these guys will show themselves get their ass kicked and they'll come back. Seagal's like, they can't even touch me. Why would I let them?
There's no humble in that humble, right? These are just straight up.
I have a big dick. I beat people up, and there's nothing they can do about
it. Yeah, and it's not my blood.
I think the note for Kelly in Chinese, the note for Kelly LeBrock. Okay,
yeah,
writing a note for her in Chinese was to bring that.
I need some herbs.
I need some herbs from the store. Let's see. I liken Seagal to Pepe Le Pew for multiple reasons. There's a lot of problematic stuff, but he also walks very slowly. Is never in a rush outside of when he's running, and he just gets there.
And the black hair.
Yeah, black hair. Let's see. I think there's a chance that Kelly LeBrock raped him while he was in a coma.
You got the sense from the chatter between the nurses early on that maybe there was some funny business going on.
Yeah, exactly. Seagal doesn't move his arms when he walks. Do you like how he said pimp cockroach? Oh yeah.
Yeah, the dialogue in this film is excellent. They did not, as great of an action film as it is for the action sequences. The dialogue's really good. I
It
think that
is.
like the weird lines, a lot of them just really work.
I liked how when Seagal was looking for the senator in his house and he thought he was in the closet, he actually was. A lot of times in movies, nobody's ever in the closet,
Yep.
but he was in the closet. That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
That house was ridiculous. The section that had the Egyptian.
Also, the house that he got taken to after his coma happened to have a dojo in it and all like Chinese artifacts around that it's perfect for him rehabilitating himself.
Yeah, it all the pieces fell into place, just like his actual career.
Yep. And the cop at the end, when he came down the stairs, waited way too long to be like, "Hey, we saw the tape."
Yeah, I know. You got to lead with that. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. It's like, yeah, we see the tape. You're
Are you
good
going to
here.
arrest me and kill me right now? No, you're free. Well, then of course I'm going to put the gun down. What? Tell me that.
They really slow played that one.
My personal tally that I saw that was obvious was 2 leg breaks, 2 arm breaks, and 1 neck break. I feel like it's like eventually this goes up in his movies, but
there was also like a hand break. Was that?
I didn't count the hand break. No, I just did arms like at the elbow. There's other breaks, but those were the big ones were like, "Oh, they have to say it like, "Oh, you broke my leg," which is also the funniest part of the Mad TV sketches where. I mean, he just goes around and breaks everyone's necks. It's amazing. All right, that was awesome. I can't believe it took us so long to get to a Seagal movie, but luckily it won't take us that long to get to our next one. What do we have up next?
That's right. I feel like we are often a little reluctant to do sequels because not everyone's seen the first one. You can't have to watch 2 films to see it. You don't really need to see the first one here, but we are doing Under Siege 2. I'm not actually sure I've seen it, but I've heard great things, and I can't wait to watch this.
I told you before, I remember the day this was rented at a hotel. I was on a hockey trip as a peewee, as a kid, and we went to Montreal, and this was an option, Under Siege 2, and we got it. My buddy and I and my dad watched this movie. It was such a fun experience because, once again, it wasn't even like, "Ooh, Under Siege 2 is out." It was, Seagal has a new movie. Let's get that. That's all that mattered. Which is such a funny time where that's all that matters. It doesn't matter the name of it. It's just...
Hey, who cares? Seagal, you know what you're getting, and it's going to be awesome.
And Under Siege 1 was so good, so I can't wait for this. And one of my favorite, maybe my favorite movie scene ever is in this movie, so I can't wait to get to it.
Oof. I can't wait to watch it.
All right, this was a blast, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, later.